Alright boys, so in today's video we're going to be talking about the 4th year GSSR that's on the NA version of the game. It should be out by the time this video goes up, so I'm sorry if you already rolled on the GSSR. You know, you're not going to get the omniscient wisdom of ZTL to guide you in your decision. But in this video, I kind of have all of the servants here in this little tier list, and basically what we're going to do is talk about how good all of these servants are, so then hopefully you can then make a decision of seeing which one do I want to roll on, like which one has more quality going into it. Now, I will say ahead of everything else, if you do not have Scotty, you do not have Merlin, you should probably be rolling on that banner, because Scotty and Merlin are so godly for your accounts, because basically what you can do is you can take any quick servant pretty much, pair it with Scotty, and turn them into a god. The same thing for Merlin, but with Buster servants. So even if they're not your favorite servants, even if you don't even particularly like them all that much, the amount of value they bring to your account is so immense that I think if you don't have either of them, you should be summoning on that caster one, right? So actually what we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to go ahead and bump them up here. We're just going to slap both of these in the S tier, because these are probably the two most valuable servants you can actually pull from the GSSR. In fact, they probably should be in their own tier. They should probably be in the, like, if you don't have them, you summon for them. But before we get too in-depth for all the other normie peasant servants, if you enjoy what I do in making daily FGO content, all I ask for in return is a like on the video and a subscribe to the channel. If you're feeling extra feisty, you can click that join button to become a channel member, but that's only if you really like what I do and want to go that extra step. But with that being said, let's now dive right into the GSSR and kind of talking about how good a lot of these servants are. Now, the next servant that really pops out and jumps out to me is like an S tier option you can get is Arjuna Altar. Arjuna Altar being a godly servant for all types of content in the game. I mean, we just talked about him in one of my most recent videos. This dude just does Gafoogle's amount of damage, and finally people on the NA version are getting to experience how good he is. If you missed out on him because you didn't pull him when he came out with Lost Belt 4 on the second banner, this is now another great opportunity to maybe, just maybe, get super lucky and pull him. If you don't get any of these other servants you're going for and you get Arjuna Altar by accident, that is a pretty successful GSSR if I do say so myself. So he's definitely a servant you want to pick up. Another standout servant is Mr. Chinaman over here, the Mothman himself, because you guys may or may not know, he did not seem to make that big of a splash over here on the NA version of the game. In fact, I don't even think I made a video on him when he came out, so that's kind of my fault. But this dude is the ultimate solo servant. This is when, like, the meme of being able to solo everything was kind of born, because I don't think there's been something he can't solo to come out yet. His kit is just absolutely perfect. I mean, he's got like an arts deck with an arts NP that he can loop that gives him invincibility for a turn. He has his own battery. He can drain the enemy's battery. He's just got everything he could ever possibly want. And then he can also do some pretty decent crit damage as well. Like, everything that he would ever want as a solo servant, he's got in his back pocket, in his little bag of tricks, as you would say. So he's really solid. Now, this is, okay, I might get crucified for this one, but the next standout servant is Reigns. She should be an S tier option because she's basically another waiver, right? And waiver, as you guys know, dumps 50% to, you know, any one ally, and that's incredibly useful for challenge quests, for farming, anything. Waivers is good everywhere, and Reigns has that same utility. She's providing, I mean, some of the same stuff like the defense, the attack, the ability to kind of make anybody type neutral is super useful on her NP. I was actually just doing a run recently with Mori, and having Mori be type neutral against people, not get blown up, is really nice. But for whatever reason, it didn't work for Sitanai. Sitanai still had, she was still doing less damage to like Sabers and everything. So there seems to be something a little off with it, but it's still good, right? It's still good. Even with little weird inconsistencies with it like that, it's still a very solid NP. But the reason I'm saying she's only A tier right now is that she doesn't have that 50% battery utility yet. She'll be getting that next year when her range event does come back around. So if you want to say that, like, oh, she's an S tier option because of what she'll have next year, I think that's fine. But if you pull her right now, you can get some utility out of her for sure. She's just not going to be as good as she will be in a year, you know, go figure. Another servant that's very standout as like an S tier pick is Gilgamesh. This dude, I don't know what they were thinking, because somehow he's like an AoE archer that does single target damage. If you're playing the JP version of right now of this Grand Nero Fest, the actual Lotto node is this weird like 1-1-3 kind of setup, and you know you need to have like some servant that can loop waves 1 and 2, but then like wave 3 you can just bring any Gilgamesh, right? Like, I've been getting some runs done where I'll just take a friend, like NP1, NP2 Gilgamesh. He'll have very minor buffs, and he'll just slap the entire enemy wave. Because his additional damage against pretty much any servant in the game is redonkulously useful. It is so crazy that he has just, like, this free single target damage against any servant in the game, basically. He's immensely useful. You know, I don't know how else to say that this dude is insanely cracked out of his mind, right? He's so insanely good. You know, as someone that's been using him for like 2 years, you know, I've got my Gilgamesh max grailed, max foed, all that stuff, because he's, you know, my favorite character, but he's also insanely good, right? I cannot stress that if you pull Gilgamesh, he is going to be immensely useful for you. Just make sure you do his NP interlude before anything else, because before that NP interlude, that is going to hit like a wet noodle, but then afterwards, it hits like a dump truck. So, some of the other servants, I guess we could talk about Jalter. She's going to be another one that's going to be very popular. Jalter could probably be an S or A. She could kind of fluctuate between either of these two. I'm going to put her in A, because you kind of need the right tools to make her work. She's not bad on her own, but like, let's say you don't have Merlin in your box, she's not going to be hitting that meme level of damage that you always see her hitting, right? She needs people to take her to the next level. Her base kit is fine, right? Like, she's absolutely crazy, right? Like, she's got decent crit damage, she's got a good charisma, she has a mana burst, her NP hits like a truck, she has the highest attack value in the game, but you need somebody to then take that insane nuclear bomb and throw it at somebody. And typically, that's going to be Merlin. You can try to make it work with people like Shakespeare and stuff, but on her own, she's going to need a little bit of help. I mean, that's just kind of my 2 cents. Again, as someone that's playing this game for a while and using Jalter, she's good. She's very, very good. And if you pull her, you should be super ecstatic. But she doesn't really hit the meme levels of damage unless you have somebody like paired with her to kind of help her put in that work. Dantes is kind of in a similar position, because Dantes, if you have Scotty, he's an S tier. You want him immediately. Even if you already have Dantes, you want higher NP copies so you can farm everything in the game. So if you have Scotty, Dantes is like an S tier option. If you don't, he's probably actually going to be like a B tier option, actually. He's probably going to be somewhere down in here, because without Scotty, like, Scotty basically fixed everything about Dantes. Any problems he had, she fixed. So without Scotty, he really suffers a lot. At that point, he's just like, this is a really cool character in the FGO story, and then if you don't even read the story, then you probably care even less about him. If you don't even read Danganronpa, you care even less about him. Like, he just loses a lot of points the more, like, you know, you get away from Scotty. So you see him in B tier, and I'm sure somebody will like throw this at some other Discord and be like, look at the cap this dude is spitting. He put Dantes in B tier, and I'm like, look, this is about usability and like how much they're going to impact your account. And if you don't have Scotty, he's going to be like that B tier option. But if you have Scotty, he's going to be like an S tier pick. He's going to be super godly for your account, right? So some other servants that actually, we could probably just rapid fire some B tier ones that are just, they're going to be kind of like generic farming servants. Like Arthur, he's good. He's a decent farmer, but he's not going to like super impact your account too hard. Not you. Nerocaster, very good farmer. Not really going to impact your account all that much. Same for like Kentucky. Kentucky's good for like those one waves where you have like a very beefy single enemy. He can farm that pretty well. I would say Ereshkigal is probably in that same slot. As much as I love Ereshkigal, she's not going to take your account to like the next level. She's a solid AoE Lancer, but she's not going to be like, oh, now I can beat like all these quests way easier. I will say that these two having a 50% battery, maybe you could argue they're like an A tier. because they're probably going to make your farming in events a lot easier because you can slap the 50% event CEs on them. So maybe we'll put them up in there. Kintoki, though, even though he has a 50% battery, the amount of times you're going to be breaking him out for farming is going to be, you know, give and take. He's decent in challenge quests because his damage is pretty high, but they do need to kind of buff his kit a little bit because he's really suffering from like year 1 syndrome. I mean, his new costume for Lost Belt 5.5 is really cool. I'll give him that. But yeah, I think I kind of like how this is shaping up, and this is kind of the standard. John Archer, you're a weird one. You're kind of in the same boat as gonna like Dantes. You're gonna be in that boat for like another year, because if you get her now, she's not going to be super useful for you, but then once Castoria comes out, she's a god, right? Like, I'm literally sitting over here on the JP version of the game. I have Castoria, but John is, like, the only AoE looping archer that I could, like, find, and I don't have her, right? Like, I desperately need to get her, and then I just got this realization. I was like, huh, there's not really, like, another AoE arts archer that we really have that's gonna be functioning the same way as Jean, with, like, the 40% battery, the not exceptional damage, but not low damage either. Jean Archer is pretty middle of the pack when it comes to her damage. So the fact that she even does like decent damage in the first place, pretty good. Her looping potential is pretty good. So it's like, until Castoria comes out, she's kind of going to be just lurking in your box. But once Castoria comes out, man, she's going to be pretty insane. She's pretty good with Castoria. Let's see, who else could we... Actually, Ishtar, you probably go in the same position here, but I would probably hold her in a bit of a higher regard than these two. You might even be able to say that Ishtar is maybe an S tier pick because of how much damage she does, but I don't exactly put her in the same pedestal as Gilgamesh, because when I need an AoE archer, I typically go for Gil, even though he's got like less of a charisma and doesn't have built-in crit damage. That NP of his just seems to function a bit better than Ishtar's does. But not to say that Ishtar's a bad servant. I mean, I remember when Ishtar came out, I had to drop 2 videos. I did a video being like, all right, here's Ishtar. You know, skip the banner. She's good, but not good enough to summon on right now. And then I had to do like a follow-up video being like, okay, look, is she the best archer? Because everyone seems to think she's the best archer, right? Yeah, but she's pretty solid. The 50% battery, again, is going to make your life a lot easier. She does very good damage. Her damage is very consistent because, at least for someone like, say, Gilgamesh or Napoleon, it's not predicated on any special damage mod. You could give her that, I suppose. But, yeah, that's really all I got to say for her. Hassan is probably going to be in the same position as Chinaman over here. Chinaman. Okay, Mothman, we'll call him that. How about that? He's gonna be in the same position because they're both really solid like solo type servants, and especially because he literally just like a few days ago got his buff. He functions even better with that new buff that they gave him on his guts. So he can still solo a lot of stuff. I mean, I still keep up with some people sending me like solo videos with King Hassan, and I still follow to see what he can and cannot still solo, and he's still kicking. You know, he's still able to solo stuff. His kit was definitely built to last. And he can definitely help you out in your content. Now, I will say that these two, they could be a lot lower. I could even say that, like, if you have a very solid account, these two actually might be, like, C or D tier picks. Like, do take them with a caveat, because if you're not someone that really needs to rely on soloing, or your account is pretty well built up, like, you've been playing this game for, like, a year, 2 years plus, you're not really relying on soloing things anymore. You're going in with like an actual built team. You have like a mindset for how you're going to tackle a lot of stuff. And solo servants aren't necessarily as useful, right? So do take that with a grain of salt. I'm putting them up here because mainly I'm thinking about like a new player getting into FGO right now. And they pull these servants and I'm like, well, these two are going to be supremely useful. Some of the best you can pull because you can basically solo most of the game with them, right? That's how good they are. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about there. Yashiro Amakusa, as much as I like him, I mean, his kit is insanely good with like the star refund, the buster down, the ability to yeet all of your enemies' debuffs off of them with your NP before you do damage, the decent buster buff, the NP refund every turn. I think all of that is really good, and he's like a borderline like broken ruler. The problem is that he's a ruler, and rulers aren't very useful when it comes to fighting because sure, they don't take a whole lot of damage, but they don't do a whole lot of damage in return because they're only super effective against like moon cancers and berserkers. And berserkers, sure, you fight them a little often, but The moon cancers, not really. We're not really out here fighting a whole bunch of moon cancers. I joke all the time about, like, when are we going to get the nodes of moon cancers? When are we going to get to see, like, a moon cancer node? And we still, I think we saw that once during, what, Imaginary Scrabble or something? That was the only time we saw that. So, I don't know. Maybe in the future he'll be a bit better, but, I mean, he's fine, but he's not really going to impact your account all that much. Which, again, need to remind people, that is the whole point of doing this little tier list, is how much they're going to impact your account, how much of a sploosh they're going to make. Speaking of splooshes, we have Kama. Kama, A tier, because even without Scotty, with Scotty, she's going to be like an S tier option, because she's crazy. Especially, she's going to help you trivialize a lot of the alter ego fights that are coming up. So, you know, if you have Scotty, she's going to tear that up. But if you guys want to check out my Twitch, which is linked down in the description below, I used Kama without Scotty to beat, like, both of the Arjuna altar fights, and she did absolutely fine in those battles. Kama without Scotty is still insanely good. It's just with Scotty, she goes Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times a million and starts shredding everything in her path. Now, there's a lot of servants that I'm looking at here now that I'm like, there's some L magnets over here. And when I say L magnets, I don't mean they're bad. I just mean they're not really going to impact your account a lot. And one of the servants that kind of sticks out like is Hijikata. I actually think Hijikata gets a lot of flack. I think people kind of take a dookie on him a little too much. But he's not really going to be impacting your account all that much if you pull him. Like, he's kind of generic single target berserker, like generic ooga booga do damage. And I mean, that's good if you want to do damage, but usually you want a little bit more than just generic ooga booga booga. Let's here to do some damage. So he's probably one of the servants that if you pull, he's probably going to impact your account the least. Probably not going to really be doing a whole lot for you. Da Vinci could probably go in the same tier as these guys because she has that 50% AoE battery. The problem is that she's not going to age because they're Buster servants, and Buster's still kind of kicking as a meta because there are people that still just bring like, here's my 3 servants with 50% batteries, and I just keep clicking NPs until people die. And it's like, that is a viable farming strat if you don't have Castoria or Scotty. Unfortunately, Da Vinci doesn't really function super well with Castoria. I have really yet to see somebody make it effectively work that doesn't involve bringing like 2 extra supports to dump NP back into her. So again, not terrible, especially with the buff she's going to be getting in about a year and a half. I think, yeah, because it came out pretty recently on JP. No, yeah, it'll be about a year and a half from now. That buff is pretty good. It gives her like extra arts damage. That's pretty good. Supposed to help her loop a bit more, but she's really being propped up by that 50% battery. Honestly, you could probably bump her down because I don't think she's not gonna age as well. You might. I don't want to be a meanie, but like I feel bad putting her with Jean because Jean's only there because she's really solid now, and then she's gonna age super well. So it's gonna be super good in your account. She's gonna age like a fine wine. You know, she's going to really help you out as you go along. Da Vinci's not really going to age that much better. So it's like, I don't know. I'll slap her there, and you can't stop me. Skahawk. Skahawk's the next one I want to talk about. Probably B, because Ooga Booga damage. If you don't have Scotty, she has a lot of problems, especially with NP gain. With Scotty, she has a lot of her problems fixed. And if you Scotty's main issue is gaining NP. She gets a buff that gives her a 20% battery, and they literally put in this lady right here to give her 50% NP on demand. So you fix Skahawk's NP problem, and she blows everybody up. So don't misunderstand. You see Skahawk right here, and you're like, oh, you're trying to say Skahawk's, but no. Skahawk is not bad. She chunks people into the next Outerverse, dude. She is insanely powerful, but she needs somebody to help her get her NP consistently, and that's what Scotty does. So with a lot of these servants, I mean, another one, where's MHX Alter? MHX Alter is another one. Where is she? Oh, there she is. MHX Alter, Okita. These 3 are all very similar, that if you have Scotty, they will put in insane amounts of work for you. But if you don't have Scotty, they're going to be good, but they're not going to be quite as good. Like, who else? Like, Melt is very similar. You're super similar to that. Where are the other? Show me more quick servants. Is that all the quick servants? I might be dumb. Someone in the comments would be like, yeah, at like 1510, he missed this. Oh, yeah, her. You. These, I think I grouped them all together. These 6 are basically, if you have Scotty, they put in work. because Skahawk, as you guys know, has one of the highest damaging NPs in the game with like an anti-divine niche, which isn't exactly a bad niche to be in. MHX Alter can output, I believe, still the highest damaging like turn in all of FGO because of how hard like she hits with Scotty. Okita becomes an insane like looping Saber with Scotty. You know, she's insanely good for challenge quests. I don't know how Okita is this good with like 0 buffs. They buffed her NP, and I think that's all they did. And somehow she still just cracked out of her mind. Melta Lilith, insanely good with Scotty. It fixes all of her problems, right? They had to buff everything about you, but again, they made no. Don't go up there. You don't get to sneak up there. Everything she does now is like crazy, especially if you bring her against Sabers, where she has like this insane damage mod. And then you probably more than Skahawk need help genning your NP, because I've used her a little bit since I pulled her on JP, and NP kind of seems to be the issue with her. And on JP, I'm like, man, I really hope I get Scotty so I can finally start using Saber Alter Rider. But these 6 are all like pretty decent servants if you pull them. You might pull them out every now and then, but if you have Scotty, they're going to be gods on your account. They are going to be insanely good. Something else I want to put in here is I want to put Squirtoria in here. She's in the same position as John, where she's good now, but once Scotty comes out, or not Scotty, once Caster Artoria comes out, she's going to be a god. The only thing, though, is that if you've been playing for a decent amount of time, you probably have Chloe. And, you know, if you have Chloe, I'm not going to say that it invalidates Archer Artoria, but I'm going to say it kind of invalidates Archer Artoria because she's a free NP5, you know, free to obtain, does more damage. Like NP5 Chloe does more damage than NP1 Squirtoria. They basically loop the exact same way. Chloe's got the godly 6-hit on her arts card, so that's all I'm going to say there. Who are some, like, mess servants that really, like... Okay. I don't want to poo-poo stinky on Brynhilder, but I have barely ever brought Brynhilder out for quests. It's very rare that I ever bring her out to use her, because I don't know what it is. Like, her damage just never really seems to be on point, and even with like the Brynhilder's beloved thing, it just doesn't seem like it's all there. She really doesn't have any like hard survivability to keep herself alive in quests, so I find her dying a lot. I don't know. And that third skill where she's able to like give somebody star weight and heal them never feels super impactful, like, because then you're almost like, so you want to bring Brynhilder as like a second DPS for a main one, but your main DPS usually already has star weight, so it doesn't really make sense. So Brynhilder I really don't think is gonna like affect your account all that much. She's also kind of a generic Lancer, you know. I don't want to bump her down here, but I might. She might be, yeah, she really shouldn't impact your account all that much. I mean, especially if you're a newer player and you're like, but I need a single target Lancer. It's like, bro, we just talked about Jaguar Man, right? Like, you're going to get a free copy of Jaguar Man. She'll be fine. You can use Ku. Ku is a great single target Lancer. Like, Brynhilder really doesn't bring anything where it's like, I gotta use Brynhilder, right? Where, like, a lot of these other servants I see, like, they're aging, these age very well. You're good with Scotty. You have a battery and you do decent damage for farming. You're a pretty decent farmer. And if you're a newer player, you pull Kentucky, you just bust your card through most of the content of the game. And, you know, he's going to help you get caught up real quick. You're a ruler, so you have a niche. And these guys all are very decent with Scotty. You just kind of need to pull Scotty. So let's move on next. Nero Bride might disagree with me on this one, but I'm going to put her in A tier just because she's basically going to function as a Castoria before Castoria comes out. So if you manage to pull Nero Bride, don't use her as a DPS. Bring double Nero Bride with an Art Servant and loop everything. That's all I got to say about that. Cleopatra, I'm going to put her in C. She's not entirely useless. I've used her in the Columbus and Megalos kind of anniversary fight when they brought those back, I believe, last year. And she's actually the reason I won that pretty easily. So she definitely has some use. She kind of hits like a wet sock, especially if she misses Imperial Privilege, but she does have some uses. That's kind of the same thing I have to say about Okita Alter, especially now that I have her at NP2. Okita Alter just continues to disappoint me because her damage is still quite low, and like you would think this Buster Quick hybrid style of gameplay would be really good, but she just doesn't do it very well. I don't know what went wrong with Okita Alter. At least she's cute. She has that going for her, but she just doesn't seem to be like really shaking up the meta or anything. Like, she didn't really do a whole lot when she came out for me. Especially now having her at NP2 again, it's just a little disappointing to use her. What else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, and I also think being an alter ego is a bit underrated, because it's really good that you can bring them to, like, caster, assassin, berserker, rider, like, all of those, but then you can't bring them to any, like, knight class stuff, which I think is a little annoying, especially when you start getting mixed nodes where it's like caster and Saber, and you're like, well, great, now she's completely useless because she can't be doing damage here. Sometimes you can get away with it, because sometimes, like, wave 2 will be, like, all casters, and maybe you can sneak her in there, but it's a bit annoying to use. Abigail, I'll say she's kind of like middle of the pack, because I'll say that, like, she's decent. I'll say the same thing for Hokusai. Hokusai's kind of in the same boat as these guys. They're kind of just waiting for Castoria to really elevate them to the next level. Because don't misunderstand me putting them here saying that, like, they're bad. They're definitely good. They just need Castoria to bring them to the same level as a lot of these other servants. Because while Tamamo's good, she's not Castoria, right? She's not bringing all those same buffs. Castoria is what, like, really revived the arts meta. You know, I mean, nobody was like, yeah, the arts teams are super good with Tamamo. Like, I think I say that a little bit, and there's like a few people in the Discord that say that, but mostly it's Buster and Quick, and then Castoria comes out, and then Arts finally gets a chair at the table. So once Castoria comes out and really helps the Arts meta out, these three will become super crazy. So these three are kind of just waiting for Castoria to come out. Abigail, though, as a foreigner, if you don't have any other foreigners, she's going to be pretty decent. You know, if you want to go fight some Zerks, you know, I guess she's going to be kind of decent in that regard. I believe foreigners are also super effective against each other. I can't remember if that's the alter egos that are super effective against each other or the foreigners. I'm 90% sure it's the foreigners, so then you can also get some help in that. The problem is that foreigners is a very rare class to fight, so you're probably just better off bringing a friend Abigail. Like, surely you can just find somebody on the friends list that, like, grailed their Abigail to level 100 and got them NP5, and you just bring them instead of bringing your own Abigail. But she can be useful. Like, it's always nice to have this stuff in your own box. She's got some nice, like, team utility going on for her skills. Like, she's pretty beginner friendly, I would say, in that way. Like, she gives you a lot of, like, decent stuff. A very just decent servant to have. Like, nothing exceptional, nothing crazy, but, you know, decent. Semiramis, slap her in here. Yeah, like, AoE assassin, you know, generic, good farming, all that good stuff. Ilya does a lot of damage, but she's just not quite there. If they slap a battery on Ilya, I think she'll be kind of crazy, but just having, like, the decent NP gain, I don't think really helps her out. The buster down that she gets when she, like, fires her NP, I believe it's the demerit on her NP when she fires that she, like, loses some buster damage or something along those lines. That's a little annoying. It usually doesn't amount to too much, and usually you can kind of counteract it. But, you know, it's still annoying. You might break her out occasionally, but do keep in mind that, like, as a new player, you're probably just going to be using Medea instead because she has 100% battery, or God forbid, you have Sanzo. I mean, I break out Sanzo every day of the week over Ilya, not gonna lie. Having an 80% battery is just a little good, in my opinion, just slightly good. Let's move on to some more. Okay, so Iskandar, don't want to be too mean, but him and Ivan, I guess, are somewhat in the same boat. They're AoE riders. They're both pretty good. Ivan's more geared towards challenge quests, I think, clearly. I think the way that they built him is clearly for, they want you to bring him to harder content. Whereas, like, Iskandar can be a wave clear if you have, like, a max K-scope or even a regular K-scope and someone like Merlin to help him farm. I think it's something like that. Iskandar is pretty good, and he's decent in challenge quests, but he has, like, no survivability, so I don't know how well that's going to go out for you. You're really going to have to protect him with someone like Merlin or something, but they're both decent. Not really going to shake up your account all that much. They're not game-breaking servants, right? I'd probably argue that Drake would be far more useful for a new player because of her 50% battery. You know, that's going to help you a lot going forward for events. Kiara is pretty nutty. Kiara is, like, I know I was just talking down on alter egos, but Kiara in challenge quests, I mean, even if I'm not the biggest fan of alter egos, you can't even argue against everything she does on her skills. She's so good for harder content, especially if there's numerous enemies. Like, the ability to just suck up everybody's NP, have a 50% battery, point one enemy out in particular, and like lower their or not their HP, but their arts resistance, and smack everybody with an NP. The only issue, and the only thing that I think keeps her in A tier pretty comfortably, is that you want like NP 2 or higher, so she stops hitting like a potato. So I'll say that. Raiko's basically Berserker Iskandar. If you want to say that makes her B tier because it gives her more utility, that's fine. I'm just going to slap them together because they pretty much have the same general gameplay. I mean, she has survivability, at least over Iskandar, but basically they do the same thing in that they have a Buster NP, they drops a lot of stars, and basically they take all those stars and do a bunch of crit damage. Actually, I'll say that Raiko's a bit better, in my opinion, because she has that crit star gen pop on her NP, whereas Iskandar pops his with his Mana Burst. Now, that's good, because you would want both of those effects anyway. If you're popping Iskandar's Mana Burst, you're probably going to pop his NP, which is where you want the star gen, but if you like get like a really good arts crit, you then don't want to fire your NP again unless you have that crit star gen up. Whereas like Raiko doesn't have to worry about that ever. That's never a concern on the table because the crit star gen pops with her NP. So anytime you use her NP, she drops a lot of stars. So I guess I'll give her some credit there. Plus, she's a Zerg, so you can bring her anywhere. Very good for farming. Plus, it's Mama Raiko, dude. She's a baddie. Look at her. She's adorable. Musashi and Sigurd, I'm going to slap them up here. They're very good Sabers when it comes to, I mean, just doing damage and doing very well in like hard, difficult content. I don't think I really need to say a whole lot about them. I actually did a whole comparison video between Musashi and Sigurd. You can check that out if you want more in detail for them. But they're both very phenomenal on how they handle harder content. Shuten Doji, again, another servant. She got a battery recently. She's really crazy. I meant to make a video about her, but it never really came out. So unfortunately, I didn't really get to sing the praises of Shuten. But with the battery, kind of fixed a lot of her issues with her not really being able to loop properly. So she's pretty crazy. I think she still has the highest attack of all assassins in the game. So she's going to be doing big damage, huge damage. Unfortunately, you got to wait for Castor to kind of help her out completely and kind of give her all that art support that she wants. But I mean, even now, she's decent as an AoE assassin. Once she gets the battery, though, and once Castoria comes out, she is pretty dang good. Sherlock Holmes, I'm going to put him in A. People really sleep on Sherlock Holmes as a support. I'll put him like right next to these two. He's basically big, mega crit damage support guy, right? Like, you pop his NP, everybody gets crazy crit damage. He lowers all the enemy's defense by like a massive amount. And then you just go to Hammer Town. The problem there is that like people don't want to bring Sherlock. They want to bring double Scotty, double Merlin. It's way easier to do and you just blow people up. Sherlock actually requires you to use your brain a little bit, and people don't want to use their brain. It is Fate Brain Dead Over. Order. That is the name of the game. We want to be as brain dead as possible. That's why we 3-turn farm everything, right? So Sherlock's very good. I know new players and old players, if they pull Sherlock, they're gonna be like, no, I didn't want Sherlock, and they're gonna complain. But it's like, calm down. Sherlock's actually really good. You know, he's a very solid support. If you want to blow people up, he's gonna be very effective in doing that. Summer BB, I'm gonna put her up here because she is invaluable in what she allows for a lot of farming, especially if you're someone that does not have, say, your own Scotty, your own Castoria, you know, your own whatever X caster that you need to do your farming. Summer BB can let you get away with a lot of that with letting you lock your cards in place. So if your farming setup requires you to get face cards, Summer BB can really help you out with that with her ability to lock down cards. I know there's some, I know for the tree battle and Lost Belt 4 at the very end, I know specifically there's team comps for Parvati where you want to use Scotty, Parvati, and then this Summer BB, because Summer BB can basically essentially guarantee a 3-turn loop by locking down specific cards in there. So Summer BB in the hands of a right big brain FGO player can actually, you know, be a broken servant. But if you're just going to try to use her like a monkey, right, with the 50% battery into farm, she's probably like lower, right? Because her damage is kind of poo-poo stinky, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, so she's, if you're going to be big brain, you'll get the most out of her, right? Shiki, man. Shiki. I like Saber Shiki, but I don't know, man. never really finding myself ever breaking her out for farming. Her damage is okay. She kind of got shafted because the free-to-play version of Shiki sacrifices HP for NP, whereas this Shiki sacrifices NP for HP, which I'm like, come on, dude. Like, give the 5-star AoE the NP skill, man. She needs to be farming. The problem, though, is I believe her insta-kill procs before her hits do, so she can actually insta-kill people before she hits them, meaning she doesn't gen NP back, which has always been kind of an issue. Someone was trying to tell me they fixed that, but I've used her recently, and it didn't look like she was looping very well, so I don't know if they fixed that. Burb is going to go in A tier. She's basically like these two, how well they perform in challenge quests as a single target Saber. All right, imagine that, but it's arts, so she can actually loop her NP, and she has like very good damage mods against bad guys. All right, if you're a bad guy, she's coming after you. Like, Bird is gonna land down some justice. All right, but Tamamo, I don't want to put her in B because like she's not bad. Like, generic good charisma, has a survivability skill that stuns her, which is kind of whack. Has a charm that gives the enemy charge as well, which can be very annoying, although it can give you some control over their NP. And then her NP has an anti-male niche, which isn't bad. There's a lot of males in the game. And she's a Lancer, you know, so you can use her against like any Archer or Berserker, basically, to do like really big anti-male damage. But I don't know. I think the demerits on skills 2 and 3 are enough to kind of hold her down in C tier for me, because I'm always very hesitant to bring out Tamamo Lancer when I have people like, say, like Skahawk, or I have, you know, this is ironic, because I'll bring out Brynhilder before I'll bring out Tamamo Lancer. So maybe she should actually be down here with Brynhilder, because Brynhilder I at least know is not going to screw me over potentially, because you can try to control the enemy NP, and then they're just like, you know what, I'm going to give myself additional charge, and then I'm going to fire my NP now, and then Tamamo, you're like, thanks Tamamo, you got us killed, bro. But like, the third skill, having a stun demerit, can be very annoying, especially if you don't have a way to cleanse it. That can definitely get really annoying, because then you're like, well, now I'm just sitting here like a wet noodle, not being able to do anything. So, new players, again, kind of same advice with Brynhilder. There are other good single target Lancers. Like, these two probably aren't going to impact your account all that much, although I'm sure people are going to be upsetty spaghetti about that one, because you know, Nero Fest is on right now, so people are seeing cheerleader Brynhilder, and they're losing their minds because their baddie is in D tier. And then I know everybody loves Tamamo, so people are gonna be like, no, she can't be D tier, bro. So, you know, don't flame me, but you know, I don't know. As someone that uses Tamamo Lance, I don't find myself breaking her out all that often. I think you'll be fine with other servants. She's not really doing anything that I'm like, whoa, you gotta have this servant in your box right now. I'm gonna put Moriarty by Kentucky. Actually, I'm gonna put him a little higher, actually. After his buffs, because I was like, he has a 50% battery, but I was like, after his buff, where he can basically double buff anyone, because he can slap evil alignment on them, that makes him pretty good, especially in farming setups. Because let's say, like, you have, like, it's a Saber node, right? You have, like, a Rosh clear wave 1, some other guy comes in, like, I don't know, Gilgamesh comes from the back line, Moriarty is on wave 2, because say that wave 2 is like a 1 enemy node, is some big beefy boy, which is not uncommon for them to start doing, especially going forward. He'll chunk them, turn Gilgamesh evil, give him 40% additional attack, and then Gilgamesh will just rip and tear into the last node and just kill everybody with an additional 40% attack. So he can be very good in that kind of regard. He does need stars, but I mean, in that specific, like, farming node that I just kind of slapped out there, you could give that Gilgamesh, like, Golden Catches the Carp, or just any other Star Bomb CE, but I would prefer Catches the Carp, because it gives Gil 50%, which actually be good for that farming node, because then, you know, you're dropping the stars for Moriarty to get his 50% battery, and then Gil is also going to be starting at 50%, which works out if, you know, you have, like, Merlin in that team comp as well. So, you know, he's pretty good. He's got a lot of very good uses. He does pretty big damage, you know, all that good stuff. Murasaki, kind of B tier-ish, you know, kind of average-ish AoE caster. She's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but you're probably going to be reaching for Nero caster more times out of 10 if you have her. And she's in a very tight competitive spot with Nitocris, where Nitocris just insta-kills everybody. And usually 9 times out of 10, I'm just going to reach for Nido Chris, slap on Demonic Bodhisattva, and watch her insta-kill everybody instead of bringing Murasaki. Unfortunately, even though Murasaki's a Raidus... Hey, look at that! Both of the Raidus servants are next to each other. I just noticed that. That's pretty sick. But yeah, even though she's a Raidus servant, is super, you know, banging, if you know what I mean. She's probably going to be in B tier. She'll be a decent servant for you to have, but she's not going to impact your box too much. Proteta's probably also going to be in B. Because I'm thinking if you're like a newer player or you're someone that's been playing for a few years, you might really like Protea, but her gameplay is a bit weird. Not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it takes a little bit getting used to and kind of getting her going. Once you can kind of start getting her going in challenge quests or like in fights, she can be pretty good. If you want to use her as a farmer, you know, you want to start getting those stacks up, and then by like wave 3, you want to consume the stacks to give her battery or stuff. You can do stuff like that. It kind of just takes some getting used to and figuring out, okay, so if I'm doing this farming, I'll have like 20% and I won't have like my buster buff or whatever. Like all that good stuff. Kind of figuring out is okay. Once she gets her buff where she reduces NP damage every turn as well, that's when you could probably bump her up to A, because it gets really hard to kill her at that point when she's got like 90k HP and only takes 60k from an NP. Like, at that point, she gets a little nutty. So, B tier for now. Once she gets her buff, you can probably bump her up to A. And then, Mao Nobu. Oh boy, what do I do with you, man? What do I do with you? I mean, probably going to be D tier. Not really going to impact your account all that much. And she's in such a poor position. Because as an AoE Avenger, there's another one that's coming out later on in the year, just a few months down the line, that just completely blows Mount Nobu out of the water, man. Give her like 1 or 2 more buffs and she'll be super good, but I don't know, man. She needs more, man. 20% battery wasn't enough. Maybe they'll give her like... She needs built-in crit damage for one. She needs to get that, because they clearly want her to be a crit servant and do massive damage. They need to give her that. And then they also, I don't know, give her like 20% NP refund every turn as well. So she has an initial 20% and then 20% every subsequent turn. I don't know, but this is kind of what this is looking like. If you get any of these servants up here, you should be very happy. You get any of these servants, you should be happy. Any of these in B tier, also good. Anything in C or D, I mean, they're not really going to help you out all that much. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you already rolled on the GSSR, let me know what you guys think. I'll probably drop my GSSR summons tomorrow or something like that. But with that being said, my voice is killing me, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace, late guys.